Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Adam, originally from the UK. For the last more than 20 years now, I've been in one level or another involved with the Kalkari Sangeet Vidyalaya, which is a small school, small NGO just outside Dharwad in a nice rural location where we take care of around 240 children, providing a free education in academic subjects, Hindustani classical music. We provide hostel facilities, medical care, and we take care of these children right from a young age of 6 years old, right up until they complete their higher education, whatever that might be. They might complete a 12 standard undergraduate, postgraduate degree. We support them all the way through till they complete their education. And everything is predominantly free. We're targeting children and families that are facing pretty acute socioeconomic challenges. And, the mantra for us is kind of breaking the cycle of persistent poverty. So trying to ensure that these children are not following in the footsteps, of parents, which might be daily wage laborers and this kind of thing. And it's about 70% of our children are first generation learners. So we've over the 20 years, in the last 3 to 4 years, we do start to see some success of this. So maybe we'll come to that later.
Great. So thanks for giving a quick perspective, Adam, on this. And over to the team now.
Yep.
Yeah. First off, thanks a lot for your valuable time. And I just wanted to understand one thing. So let's say when we, or personally myself, when I go to a new place, I start overthinking before even getting the motivation as to it's a new place for me and how would I adapt to the culture, to the lifestyle there, because it's a huge cultural change for me, right? When I get into a new location, especially out of India. So what was that motivator for you, and what made you think that you can, because with new culture comes new experiences, new shocks. So what was that zeal in you which you thought that you could overcome anything and everything come your way?
Well, initially, I wasn't necessarily looking for something very specific. I knew this was more than 20 years ago, and I was on a journey to find something new in my life, something that would add more value to my life, and at the same time, if I can add value to others, right? And that could have been in any sector, any field, whatever it might have been. It just needed to be something. I was kind of disillusioned with Western lifestyle and all of this, and didn't kind of want to fall into many traps that I was seeing there. And I just had this feeling that there has to be more to life than this. So I was kind of looking for that thing, and if it could be something that would add value to others, then that was a great thing as far as I was concerned. And I feel I don't know if if it was me or many years ago, one of the first things I did in my career, I was in the British Army for 5 years, and that gave me a whole pretty broad range of skills, and I think that's probably definitely contributed to one of the things that makes me a very adaptable person, right? I find dealing with change in different environments pretty easy, and I kind of just roll with these things and go with the flow in some way, right? So I'm not really someone who finds these things that much challenging in terms of change or adaptability. I'm usually quite easy with that, but generally it's a trade with most people, right? Everybody, whatever you might be starting, it could be when you're young and you're starting a new school, or maybe your parents, because of their work, they've moved somewhere and you're having to start a new school with new friends or a new job, and everybody's having this nervousness inside them about this change and how it is. But usually what we overthink these things and over worry these things, and the things that we think that are going to happen don't happen. And usually what we find is the worrying was actually all pretty much unnecessary, right? So I'm finding that at the moment. I got a son who's 11 years old right now, and he's doing, I don't know what it might be, some school competition, or he's a tabla player also. So maybe he's having to do a tabla program on the stage, and he gets so nervous, the nights before and everything, and he can't sleep, and he's worrying and everything, and having to talk to him to tell him, it's going to be fine. There's nothing to worry about. You'll be great. Just be you, and this kind of thing. And then the next day, he does his program, his event, or whatever it is, and then comes back home and he's like, oh yeah, it was nothing. And it's always the worrying about it is always much more. We always overthink these things, right? And it's pretty much unnecessary. So usually everything is going to be fine, right?
Awesome. Overthinking can be at times.
Some other question.
Yeah, is it working?
Hello?
Yeah, it's
Adam,
good.
you can hear me, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, huge respect for what you are doing, Adam. But just a little bit probing question for me to understand a little better. Is what you are doing, have you landed on it by accident, or have you actively pursued to be in this kind of journey? Because I somehow understood, I think you are not the founder, right? You are actually started working on this project and you implemented all these things. So as an external party that probably disconnected at the beginning from the vision, how do you actually connected with what your founders are, initiators of this objective? Where did that connection happen, and how you bought into that, and how you transformed yourself to actively seek and develop that?
Yeah, sure. Well, the answer is yes to both of those questions in some way, but was I actively seeking it? Yes. And was I, you can also say no. So basically what happened for me was I used to travel quite a lot, right? This is like post-army days. I used to travel quite a lot. And I always enjoyed, exploring new countries, new cultures, meeting new people, and broadening horizons and all of this. But then at some point, I was kind of hankering for more in life, and this was when I was, approaching my 30s, I guess. And it was at that point when I was feeling that I didn't want to fall into this trap of working for somebody else, receiving a salary, paying bills, and just going around in this hamster wheel, right? And I was looking for something that could add more value to my life. And at the same time, I was kind of getting disillusioned a bit with the social fabric of Western society and everything, about how the direction things were moving in Europe. And for me, it just felt like this is not a place that I really want to settle. It's not a place that I want to have family. And so at some point, I made myself kind of knuckle down, and I worked for quite a few years to put some money in the bank so I could have an extended trip. And the thing that I did at that time, I made it a very open trip. So it was really, I was leaving a lot of things to synchronicity. So synchronicity, when you're just kind of, again, going with the flow and seeing where the road takes you, and I have a firm belief in life that you're not meeting anybody by chance, right? All the people we meet in our life, it's either you have a message for them or they have a message for you. There's some exchange has to be there. And so this was my road, that I was on this synchronistic journey where I had a kind of an open-ended 5-year plan, landing in India, going east, so could have been anywhere. And when I landed in India this time, it was, I came with no plan, no guidebook, no nothing. And it was really just, let's see who I meet and see where the road takes me, and just let the thing naturally unfold in front of you. And I had the fortuitous situation of, pretty much having enough funds in front of me to travel on a budget, not in a luxurious way, but to travel on a budget for 3 to 5 years. And it was within that time that I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna find something. I'm gonna find something that resonates with me. I'm gonna find something that suits me, and get involved with that. And hopefully, this is something that is generating a little bit more interest and value in my life. And if I can add value to others, then great. And it was quite soon in this trip to India. Actually, it was within the first 3 or 4 months that I heard about friends of mine who are the founders of KSV, Matthew and Agat Fortier, that they'd started this little project in North Karnataka. And so I came to see what they were doing out of interest. And I intended just to visit at the beginning for a few days. Ended up staying for about 3 or 4 months, I think, just helping out, volunteering, teaching English, building some buildings, working on plantation, whatever it was. But the one of the real attractive things at that time was that there were people from, this is the first batch of volunteers in this organization, and there were people from all different parts of the world working with people, Indian people from different backgrounds again. And it was all these kind of different backgrounds, nationalities and everything, everybody coming together for a common purpose. And it felt, and it is very real, right? It's, we're really dealing with people, young people, and their lives, their development, their education is something that's very real. And that really resonated with me at that time, right? So after that 3-4 months, I'd gone to travel elsewhere in India, and then, I don't know, something inside me is just kind of pulling me back. So I came back to see, what was going on, how was the development after 3-4 months, and it's been since that time that I've been involved with this organization, and it's been a long learning process for me. And if I'm totally honest, I'm pretty grateful to the founders, Matthew and Agat and everybody, because if I'm honest, I wouldn't have had the courage at that time to start something like this, right? I'd do it now. I've got a lot of skills behind me now. I'd do it now, no problem. But back then, 20 odd years ago, I don't think I would have had the courage myself to actually start that. So kind of falling in on the tails of somebody else, but it's something that resonated very much with me. And I was able to join with Matthew and Agat and really make something here.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, you can come closer maybe if you want. Yes.
Hello, Adam. It's nice to meet you. I think this is a great example. Usually we see, Indians going to abroad and, to trying to do different things. But, this is a great example, what you have said, right? I think I'm extremely proud, what you have been doing. I have a very simple question, but I think it might be a little difficult to answer. What is the key challenges you faced, when you wanted to do this work, and how did you overcome it? And one more curious question what I have is, how did you overcome the language barrier? Because you're not staying in a city, it's a remote place, and I'm sure not many people talk English there, right? How did you manage these things?
Well, The challenges have evolved over time, I guess. So the first challenge, of course, we faced was building trust, and was building trust in the local community. So I don't know where you guys are all from and everything, but we're from Dharwad in North Karnataka, and it's 15 kilometers outside the city. It's a very rural area. Back when we started, Kalkiri was Kalkiri is the end of the bus route, right? So the only reason that anybody's on the bus coming to Kalkiri is because they live there. They're either going back home or going to the market or something. Nobody was really going to Kalkiri. And then even beyond, you go by walk. Now there's some buses there, and at that time there was no road, but we used to have to walk 4 kilometers from the Kalkiri bus stand into the forest to where we had the initial area of the school, right? And of course, if you can put yourself in the position of a villager from Kalkiri, and it's certainly not every day that you're meeting foreigners. It's certainly not every day that you're meeting foreigners that are starting some kind of project just outside their village, where working with kids. And then again, you've got the whole element of music, and it's something that was very new and very alien to a lot of people there. So, of course, it took some time to build trust within the local community. And you wouldn't believe that some of the rumors that were going around at that time, in those very early days, that we wanted to kidnap these kids and sell their internal organs on the market and stuff. All crazy stories like this were going around, right? Of course, because people are lacking education, and they've just not seen this kind of thing before. So the easiest way to build trust, I find, is not to try to convince anybody of anything, right? It's just quietly go about your business, and you can do it with a high level of integrity, and you just let your actions speak for you, right? So it didn't take long for people to realize that we were serious about what we were doing, and we were serious about educating these kids to a good level, and we were providing employment to local people in the community. And so that level of that trust that got built up and everything fairly quickly, I'd say, within the first year or two, right? Now the challenges have become much more, let's say, consistent, where these challenges just seem to be there, but it always seems to be at the forefront for us is fundraising and human resources are the two main challenges, which are pretty much interlinked, right? Without having enough funding, it's difficult for us to compete with corporate level salaries and things like this. So it's challenging to attract, high caliber human resources into the team. So these are constant challenges that are there that we're always working to overcome, right? And your second part of the question was about the language barrier. So, well, before I became involved with KSV, I had already started to learn Hindi. So I'd been on that journey for a few months, I guess, and I kind of reached a point. Learning a language as an adult is way more difficult than learning a language as a child, right? Children just soak up knowledge like a sponge. And, my son is 11, he speaks 5 languages. It's I don't know how that happened, but it's happened. And, so I was, learning Hindi, and actually working with KSV was like a springboard in my language ability, because suddenly I there's a bunch of kids, and many of these kids are from tribal backgrounds, speaking like Lamani, like the Gormati community, and that language is very close to Hindi. There's some Muslim kids were there speaking Urdu, so very close to Hindi. So I was able to start to communicate with the kids, and you're much less self-conscious as an adult making mistakes when you're talking to children than you are with other adults. So it was quite good for me in some sense, and I progressed quite quickly, I think, in my Hindi, and I think I got to the point where it's probably more than 10 years ago now, that 70% of my day, of my spoken day, let's say, would be in Hindi, and about 30% would be in English. And then as time has gone on, children have learned English, and that seems to have had some effect where they're learning English much earlier because it's more widely spoken. Now it's, I think, 80% of my day I speak in English these days, and my Hindi has actually gone down, and I'm pretty ashamed to say that my Kannada is at a very, very basic level still after 20 odd years, but I should have put more effort into that. But yeah, the language barrier, it seems it's been okay, right? We've been able to manage with that.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for that insight.
Would you like to come forward?
Yeah.
Is it hot seat?
Hot seat, yes. Hi, Adam. Thanks for making your time for this. So I have only one question. I think you might be having colleagues who might be supporting you now in this mission. So how do you manage their expectations?
How do I manage the employees' expectations?
Yes.
Well, it depends what you mean by the expectations, because expectations can be varied. Of course, one element of people's expectations is their salary package, and the second expectation might be their how they feel value of their themselves in the work that they're doing, and they feel that they're doing something meaningful. So I think we might find ourselves at opposite ends of the spectrum in some ways, whereby in the corporate world, I think the salary expectations are much more easily met. But in the NGO world and everything, when we're working on limited budgets with, everything is done by fundraising. Sometimes we're lacking in the element when it comes to salary expectations, and I'm not under any illusion about that. On the other side of the fence, when it comes to having a feeling of purpose in your life, which everybody needs, just the very nature of our organization and the work that we're doing, working with disadvantaged children, providing them opportunities, and then watching them grow throughout the years, and then get into college and university and make a success of themselves. That's extremely valuable, and it's extremely valuable to be a part of that and to see that, rather than you might work in a corporate where the machine is very large and you kind of get lost inside that machine, and it's difficult to kind of see that value. So it's at the beginning, getting people to buy into your or resonate with your vision and your mission and your values is all important, right? So if we can find, this is the one thing I've got my HR hat on, right? As an NGO director, when you're short-staffed and everything, you have to wear lots of different hats. So if I've got my HR hat on and I'm doing recruitment because we don't have an HR person for whatever reason, the only time that I'm paying attention to somebody's qualifications is when it comes to hiring academic teachers, because this is what the law states. and this is the rules we need to follow according to the education department. But our teachers need to have a Bachelor of Education. Apart from that, whatever role it might be, even if we advertise we want somebody with a postgraduate degree or this many years experience, I'm not so much interested in anybody's qualifications. I'm more interested in somebody's experience, how that person is as an individual, what resonates with them as their personal values, and how do they align with our institutional values. And if you can find these kind of people that fit, that are more there because they're interested in what we do, then it's much easier for these people to, they seem to have less expectations to manage in some ways, right? I'm not sure if I answered your question very well there or not, but.
Thanks.
Over?
If you have something, I mean.
Hi Adam, good afternoon. So my question is more related to the values. You talked about values. So two questions. What cultural values define Kalkari? Number one. Number two, we always talk about scaling of businesses, scaling of products and all that in corporates. When it comes to scaling of culture, how do you actually handle? So these are the two questions.
Well, the values that are important to us and that are our 5 core values are integrity, compassion, equity, cooperation, and achievement. So for me, within all of that, and it's at the top of the list for a reason, is integrity, which for me is the. Are you guys still hearing me? Because my side, your screen is frozen. You're hearing me? Okay. Yeah, integrity is the top of the list for a reason. I see this as being, kind of the king of all values. If you can really operate 100% out of a high level of integrity, pretty much everything else falls into place, right? So these are our core values that we try to, we make sure that they're not just words on a page in a document on a website or something. They have a deep-seated meaning, and we really try to integrate these values into the daily life at KSV, not only for the staff, but especially for the children, that they grow up having a strong set of values. And it's somewhat easier to work with children that have not really had this thought process about any kind of, what are my personal values or whatever, and it's easier to work with them to take on board these values rather than working with adults that might join your community at some time as a teacher or a warden or whatever, and they've all got already have ingrained personal values within themselves and everything. So we encourage them to say, look, try to not leave your personal identity at the gate, but when you come into the campus, we all need to imbibe these 5 core values of KSV. And the second part of your question about scale, I didn't quite get what you meant about scaling culture.
So scaling of culture is more in terms of how do you ensure that those values are ingrained in every aspect of how you run the organization.
Okay,
because you have different people from different walks of life. So
yeah, well, when it comes to the staff, it's regular communication, right? I think is the key. So regular communication and like-minded people, and making sure that we are consistent in our communication also, so that whatever the founders are talking about, the values of the school, or it might be the strategic plan of the school, or it should be the same as the communication that comes from me. It should be the same communication that's coming from heads of department, that we're consistent in this communication, and that we are regular in this communication, and that we're transparent in this communication. So I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. That helps. Thank you.
Change it.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi there, Adam. I'm Jitendra, and
Hi.
the question is coming from one military veteran to another, so it's very special. It's across geographies, but there are a lot of values that get ingrained in whatever experience you have in the military. So my question is something very close to that, is in terms of your transition from the military, what kind of sense of satisfaction that you had in your experience in military is equated to the sense of satisfaction that you're doing in the role here? And also, like, in the military, it normally happens that you have like a 1 or a 0, a yes or a no. There's no maybe kind of a situation. So we don't get into a lot of analysis paralysis, dilly dally, and things like that. But when you come to the civil, it's more emotionally ingrained. So you need to discover, unravel more. So how much of a challenge was it for you during the transition period, and what would you say to that needs to be forgotten for a veteran, what he should let go and what he should keep with him? You know, sometimes unlearning some parts. So these were the two questions I had.
Well, I guess the the big takeaways from me from the military, I think, was a sense of discipline, of course, which is highly ingrained into you as a soldier, and as I mentioned before, the whole adaptability thing, and you know that the army made me grow up very fast. So I was young. I joined the army at 16, right? I did 16 till 22 in the army, and the first year and a half, I did it's what's called the Junior Leaders Regiment. So it was like a basic training alongside, leadership training and also military college. And yeah, that I was pretty boisterous as a teenager and everything. And I could have seen myself, getting into all kinds of trouble if I'd not joined the army. And it made me grow up very fast. And I'm pretty grateful for that. And yeah, I think that the character that anybody that's gone through basic training and then served at least a couple of years in the army, that is definitely going to have, imprinted something of who you are as a person in your adult life. And I think there's a lot of very positive character traits that we can take away from having being in the military, right? And I often think, when I look and I see, how the youngsters are these days in England and places like this, and you have all this kind of gang culture, and there's a lot of knife crime and all kinds of horrible things going on. You kind of think that conscription is not a bad idea, right? Put everybody in the military for 2-3 years, and it would soon sort everybody out, right? And I think it would add a lot of value to many countries. And sure, when we talk about how to bring about change, right? And we've got 3 different things in front of us, right? One, we've got the model, as you said, of the military, where there is no discussion. There's a clear chain of command. This guy's telling you what to do, and you're doing it. And that's what it is, right? You might like it, you might not like it. That's not important. You're trained to follow orders. So that's what it is. And there is no discussion. And then you've got this, what you guys are living in the corporate machine, and you have a pretty unenviable position in some ways, because you're how to say, you're squeezed in the middle, right? You're receiving change that's come down from the top that wasn't maybe necessarily decided by you, or you might not have been involved in the consultation process, but you're the guy that has to implement the change. And then from the bottom end, you're receiving pushback from the people that are resistant to the change. So you're getting you're squeezed from both sides, right? And it's quite an unenviable position. What I've learned, I think, in this whole thing about how to bring about change, it's really not about the process, even though that is what you want to change. You want to change the process, you want to change the workflow, whatever it might be. So it is about the process, but you can't focus on the process. You have to focus on the people. So only if the people are with you, right, then it's much easier. There's going to be much less resistance, and you're going to be able to much more easily bring about this change. And the way I found to bring about that change in a much easier way is to start the dialogue early with the stakeholders and pretty much present to them the challenges we're facing and get them to come up with options and ideas and everything, and something will come that's close to resonate with you about what you want to do anyway. And then you kind of pick that out and develop that. But then it turns out that the people that are actually implementing the change, it appears that they're the ones that came up with the change in the first place. So they're really buying into that whole process, and there's much less resistance. So it's really important to have this early dialogue, to be clear, consistent, to really show compassion also, because there's a lot of, we're creatures of habit, and we don't like change too much, right? So there's a lot of fear involved in change, and making sure everybody has the capability to bring about the change. So they're trained properly, they have the right equipment, they have the right support, and all of these things. So the NGO model is a world away from the military model, and you guys at the corporate level are somewhere in between the two. So
that's thank you, Adam, on that. Kind of aligns on the thought process even I have, but great with the examples and how you've gone about it. Thank you so much for sharing.
thanks. Any other question?
I have one more question, Adam. Over the last 15 years or 20 years, right, that you were part of this journey, was there any time where you felt like you're losing the passion or the vigor and the strength to take this forward? And if so, how did you regroup yourself and get back onto the track? Why I'm asking this is as sorry to this is I think in every job we tended to get into some monotonous situations, or we wanted to try something new, but sometimes our passion or our values want us to do something else. So just wanted to understand your perspective on this.
Well, I've come close, right? Yes. I came close probably about 3 years back, right? So we've gone through this 2 years of madness, of the lockdowns and COVID and all of this stuff, which, apart from on a personal level, that was quite an interesting time for me. But on an institutional level, that was pretty tough, right? And it was really tough for the children, especially. They pretty much missed 2 years of their education, right? As much as we tried to do online classes and all of this stuff, which we, nobody was trained for, equipped for, ready for, and and then on the back of that, it's a whole long story how it happened, but it was basically an administrative error, and because of that, we were we were we lost our FCRA permission, right, for a period of time, and this was at the end of 21, I think. And that was at a time when 80% of our funding was from foreign sources, and just like overnight, the taps turned off. So that was a very tough time for us for what was nearly 3 years. It was really we were in survival mode for 3 years, and there were points within that 3-year period that you really felt that things were coming on top, and it was getting a little, I wouldn't say it was about that we wanted to give up, but there was always these things in mind. We were planning for different scenarios for different actions, and it might have been scaling back activities and stuff like this, and whether it's you're providing less services to the children, or you're thinking about making people redundant or whatever. None of these things are very positive, things to think about that are growth orientated. So that was pretty tough. But, and again, it probably goes back to, for me, the military part of my upbringing. I'll say upbringing because I was still pretty young when I was there. That's it's difficult to stop me doing something when I want to get on it and when I want to do it. I'm having an attitude of failure is not an option. So of course we do fail sometimes, but we really need to enter into these things that we do with this positive mindset. It's not even a mindset that I can do it. It's more about entering in with the mindset that I've already done it, that you're kind of visualizing yourself, that you've already succeeded before you've even started. And if you can really get into things with this kind of mindset, yeah, things seem to work well, right? So, yeah, I've kind of thought about that a little bit, but one of the things, I'm always telling, I work with a lot of young people and everything, so one of the things I'm always telling them is that there seems to be the whole thing in India where everybody's looking. You either want to be, your parents want you to be an engineer, your parents want you to be a doctor, or your parents want you to get a government job. These are kind of the three main tick boxes that you're looking for, some kind of security or whatever it is. But for me, it's 40 years is a long time, right? That's pretty much your working life, somewhere like 25 to 65 or thereabouts. It's a long time, and we spend most of our day working. And then the second amount of time is sleeping, and the third amount of time is time for us, free time. So if you're spending most of your time working, you want to make damn sure that it's something, we're working for something at the very least that interests us. Better than that, it's something that we're passionate about. And if we're finding something that is passionate, something that is exciting us inside, makes us feel excited and energized and interested, then you start to not see these things so much as work. And as what's happened for me, it's become more of a lifestyle choice, right? So I think that's important for youngsters to really find this thing that excites them, find this thing that they're passionate about, and go for it. Take some risks and try to make a livelihood and a living around that passion and that excitement.
Thanks, Adam.
I have a leading question.
Sure.
Adam, you have time? We've actually originally planned 30 minutes, but is it
No,
okay
it's
if we
fine.
take one more question? Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank-
No problem.
Just a leading question on terms of what you're doing now, and say the government comes up with this concept which is on paper but it's not yet implemented, and there's been a lot of thought processes making it a mandate for 2 to 3 years of military service for every citizen of the country. That kind of polishes out all those irregularities, like you mentioned in UK, it's the gang culture and the knife culture and things like that. And you could say for the new generation in India would be the westernization in terms of how they think is going towards that, and also in terms of drugs and alcohol abuse and all these things that's coming up. How would you look in terms of a step-by-step process? Like, let's take for the kids that you have right now, and you have some youth that are there. How would you break down that the existing institution or a new institution in terms of getting through and acquainting them with how to get into the military and what should be the mindset? Is that a thought that's gone through, or if it happens, how do you look at it broadly? In what steps would you try to, if you were on the founding member of an institution like that, how would you look at it? Something for the youth in terms of joining the military, and you're preparing them to be there.
Well, it's not something that I've thought about too much, because it's not something we're really actively doing. We're a music school, right? We're producing musicians and artists and this kind of thing. It's quite opposite in some way. Having said that, one of our alumni, ex-KSV students, successfully joined the Indian Navy on the music quota, right? He did a BCom, a B Music, was a talented sitar player, and he got into the Navy on the music quota. And now, this guy's sending me WhatsApp messages from Sweden and the Philippines and all different places where he's traveling all over the place with the Indian Navy. It's great. And yeah, we haven't had anybody join the army yet, but yeah, there's a couple of there's one girl actually I can think of. She's in the 10th right now, and she's pretty set on joining the army, right? And I think, that could be amazing for her. She's from a rural goalie community. I think she'd be, the first one in her community to kind of do that. I have mixed feelings about it in some ways, because there's amazing value to be taken from the basic training process in the army that can really turn a boy into a man and really set some character in people. There's real value in that. Then on the other side of things, it's like, what is the army there for? The army, okay, it might be there for the defense of the nation and there to fight for the nation if needed, right? But that's when reality kicks in pretty fast, right? That, your life is on the line, and maybe more serious than that, you might be required to take the life of another, which, that's something that a lot of young kids, when they join the army, they just don't think about, right? And they don't think about it until they might be in that situation. So that's not something that I would like to see, young people having to deal with that, But on the other end, the basic training part and everything can be very valuable. And I think, Germany has a pretty interesting model, if I'm not mistaken. That in Germany, I think you're required to either do a couple of years of military service as a conscript, or you get involved with some kind of volunteer work. There might be volunteer work in Germany, or might be international volunteer work. So of course, not everybody is suited towards the military way of life and everything. And so another option for there that is service-minded, getting into volunteer work and everything. Something like that could be interesting, splitting the thing up. But I think it would be wrong just to. So I think I more or less finished my point anyway. I was talking. I thought Germany might be the good model, and not a great idea just to force everybody to do 2 years conscription.
Yep. Thanks, Adam.
Great. I think the best way to understand your work further would be to visit Kalkeri and get a live experience of what is change all about, and how do you bring change, and what's the beautiful outcome of producing those incremental changes over the years. Just for the knowledge of the team here, I think it started with 4 or 5 students, 9 students, and today it's a kind of a ecosystem where musicians love.
Yeah.
How many?
250 students actively on the books. It's like 150 in first to 10th, another 100 in somewhere between PU1 and postgraduate studies. This year we had our first KSV student complete his PhD. So we have our first doctorate that's coming out of KSV, which is a massive change for that family and community. And then we have an ever-growing number of alumni, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been fortunate to interact with some of your teachers every year. So that's something which is very, very encouraging, and to see how they're building the whole teaching community also after passing on. Adam, it has been a wonderful time talking to you. And it's time for us to reflect on what is that we gather from this conversation. And, today there was a thought that whether you are an NGO or whether you are working for a corporate, end of the day, we are dealing with the same world, which is built on people, process, and purpose. The 3 Ps, if I may use for change management. We need to have people who are aligned. We need to have a purpose which is motivating, and certainly a process which is inclusive for people to engage and build themselves. So thanks, Adam, for wonderful time. It's always enriching to talk to you. Have a good day.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
See you soon.
Bye now.